So today we're going to talk about classifying plants, classification. So first off, why do we want to classify something? Think of classifying something as a shortcut to information, a shortcut to knowledge. For example, if we said, oh, somebody is French, well, we would probably have a couple of ideas about what language they spoke, where they live, what geographic area they live. And if you're thinking, well, that's not always true, then you are right. It's not always. We can't always assume just from a classification. But that brings me to one of my big mottos for this class. Nature will find a way. So we all learned that from Jurassic Park, right? Nature will find a way. So just remember throughout this whole class that every rule I give you, there's going to be exceptions to the rule. There just is. So we do have rules we can go by, even though each one's going to have some exceptions. And those are kind of fun to learn about too. So first off, what are a few ways that we can classify plants? First of all, we can classify plants according to their life cycle. So what are the three main life cycles of plants? Annual, perennial, and biennial. So annuals are the plants that, it makes sense, they live a whole life cycle. They germinate, they grow vegetation, the leaves, the greenery, they flower, and then they die all in one growing season, okay? So you have to plant them every single year because they're only going to last the one growing season. Now, when I say they germinate, that means that the seed coat, the little hard outer covering of the seed, actually cracks and the little baby plant escapes. That's germination. The little baby plant is born out of the seed coat. So germination is when the little plant is born. So they germinate, they grow vegetation, they flower, which is the reproductive part of most plants, and then they die all in one growing season. So year after year you have to plant those. Perennial are the ones that come back year after year. And there's a lot of them that we really love, especially this time of year, right? Tulips, things like that we associate with springtime. So how does a plant come back year after year like magic? Well, when the growing season, when the growing conditions are not optimum, which is usually winter when it's cold and dark, and when the growing seasons are not optimum for growth, then the plant goes into a dormant phase, which is a sleeping phase. Think of the plant as asleep in a bulb. So a bulb, you can go to the hardware store right now and buy bulbs and plant them. What is a bulb? A bulb is basically that whole plant just shrunk down into a little package. So it's just a little resting plant in a little package. So that bulb, it's asleep. So you plant it and it'll grow when the growing conditions are right. So that's how a perennial comes back year after year. Biennial. Biennials are pretty interesting. So they actually germinate and grow their foliage, grow their vegetation the first growing season. And the second growing season, they flower, which remember is the reproductive part of most flowers. So they flower and they die. So first growing season, leaves, vegetation, foliage. Second growing season, flower and die. Okay. So the interesting thing about this is that we treat a lot of biennials as annuals, that we just plant them every year. Why would we do that? Well, think about parsley. What are we interested in with parsley? We're not interested in the flowers of parsley. We're interested in the leaves of the parsley, right? So anything that we're only interested in the leaf part, we're going to, even if it's a biennial, we're just going to treat it as an annual, plant it year after year because that's all we're interested in is the first growing cycle. Another way that we can classify plants is morphology. So if something morphs, what does that mean? Think about the Transformers, okay? If something morphs into something, it's changing its what? Structure or shape. So morphology is a structure or shape of a plant. So again, remember when we talk about classifying, we're talking about shortcut to knowledge, shortcut to information. So if I tell you something is a vine, that's its morphology, and you get a certain picture in mind, or a tree, or a shrub, or ground cover, okay? All those are morphology, structure, shape. And you get an instant, a little bit of information to start with about that plant. Environmental preferences. So just like some people like to live by the water, some plants like to live by the water. We call those hydrophilic, water-loving plants. Some plants like more acidic conditions. We call those acetophilic, okay, acid-loving plants. If we have a certain area that we need to grow something, if we have a pond area or area that gets a little swampy, then we definitely want to plant some hydrophilic plants, right? Or if we want to plant something like blueberries and we know that blueberries are acetophilic, we can adjust our soil if we need to their soil preferences. So that's why environmental preferences are important. So that's why those classifications are important. Deciduous versus evergreen. So we probably all know deciduous versus evergreen. We have an idea in our head. Deciduous loses leaves in the fall and the winter, and evergreen just stays green all year round. So deciduous would be things like most of our oaks, and evergreens would be like hollies and pine trees, things like that. So those are all ways we can classify. Another really important way we can classify and get down to the real specifics of each individual, each plant is binomial taxonomy. So, quiz question. You should know this from yesterday from your history lessons. Who invented the binomial taxonomy system? Tick tock, tick tock. Do you know? Carl Linnaeus, the Swedish gentleman. He was actually, he didn't do very well in school when he was younger because he just had too much curiosity about everything to concentrate on just what they were teaching him in school. So he didn't do very well in school to begin with, but his curiosity actually led him to become a doctor. And he was really big in lots of different things. He was very interested in classifying things. He was the first person to classify bats as mammals, not birds. So it's pretty interesting. So come back to me with in the next video, and we're going to talk about the binomial taxonomy system, which was created by who? Carl Linnaeus. Good job. Hope you remember that. All right. Have a good day. I'll see you next video.